the deal about growing a business. It has far less to do with your service and far more to do with your ability to generate and close qualified opportunities. I get asked all the time, where does social media fit in the marketing mix? All over it. It's all over it. So in this video, we're gonna break it all the way down. I'm LizJSimpson, founder of The Big Money Movement, accompanied by
Cheryl Parks
and Heather Petherick,
our esteemed coaches at The Big Money Movement. I'm gonna kick it off to you two first. Where do you think social media fits in the marketing mix?
It is everywhere. Right? So let's talk about this a little bit. So sales has changed over the years, and primarily because there is a buyer's journey to be considered. It used to be that as a salesperson, you came in with all the goods, right? You came in with all the information, you asked all the good questions, and your buyer didn't have access to everything they have access to now.
Yeah, you literally walked in with your suitcase of flyers and pamphlets and
That's
info,
right?
right?
Exactly.
That's the only way they could find out is to interact with you.
Right.
Yes.
And now that we have this little device in our hands where we can go and Google all the time to figure it out, the buyer's journey looks like this. So there's an awareness of a problem stage that they go through,
right,
where it's like, hey, I've got a problem here. Now, what should I do something about it? And if so, what is that?
Yes.
So then there's that problem consideration. Then they'll move through doing some research, and really they couple it with, is there budget for this? And we do that whether it's, personal on the consumer level or corporate, right? Can we create budget for this? And what does that look like? Typically, there will be more than one person in the room, depending on the expenditure, right? Whether they can actually sign off for something up to X number of dollars. But at the end of the day, there is this consensus on this is the solution, and they want to explore it. So if you're not showing up on social media, there's no way to see whether or not you could potentially be a fit and be aligned to handle the problems that they're having. Our foundation is LinkedIn. And part of the reason for that is because LinkedIn is the only platform where your buyer is actually self-identified, right? So if you go to any of the other platforms, you may or may not be able to find your true buyer.
Right.
But on LinkedIn, they've self-identified. They're telling you what they do, what they're responsible for. You might get a little bit in their about section in terms of what they believe and what's important to them, how to connect with them, right? So email me or just hit me here in the DMs or don't bother me. Right? So there are lots of ways to do it, but we're going to drop into the buyer's decision-making journey a little bit further and just break it down a little bit.
And can I interject just because I know that we have a unique business model. So we're talking about the corporate buyer's journey, right?
Yes.
Yep. So we're talking about the corporate buyer's journey. Stick with us. And so we're saying there's an awareness stage, consideration stage, and a decision stage. And so again, executive buyers, and that's why LinkedIn is the place to be.
And can I add to it, those executive buyers are typically about 60 to 70% of the way through their decision making.
Yes.
Before they entertain any type of sales leader coming in to talk to them about the solution.
Yeah. So that's the gap that I think social media fills in helping a buyer progress through this journey of problem awareness, consideration, and decision making.
Right.
At every stage of that journey, social media can fill those gaps and nurture the buyer to the next stage. Exactly. If you've really got things going well and you're developing a business and you're on social media, right? You've got that digital footprint. Buyers who are problem aware are then leaping to social media to say, who can help me solve this problem? And as you said, 80% of their decision making happens on social media or in these platforms. So if you're not there, if you don't have a social media footprint in the channel where you know your corporate buyer is present, you are completely missing out on those opportunities because that's where they're going. It makes me think of how we've been trained as buyers in the last, 15, even 20 years to be so self-directed. Remember when there was no self-checkout at a grocery store, and now they're everywhere because buyers have been trained and we really like taking control of this buying process, right? I don't have to wait for the checkout girl. I'll just do this myself. And buyers have the same behavior now because of social media. True. I'm not going to wait for a sales leader to come and pitch their services to me. I'm going to go to social media, take control of this my own buyer's journey, and do my research about who do I want to talk to. And then potentially reach out to them because you've got your social media footprint.
I love it. when we talk about the awareness stage, it makes me think of like Wag the Dog, like the movie. It's, you create awareness of a problem through your social media, right? There's been so many times in my life where I've not thought I needed something, but then all of a sudden I'm reading all of this content and I'm like, who knew? I do need red bottoms. They've been missing. Right? Like, who knew that was the missing key in my closet? But even with, we talk about executive buyers and we empower women to land corporate clients. Oftentimes, you can create awareness, right? That's what a lot of speaking, we talk about, a lot of the women that we serve are speakers. And so they're going to conferences and events and they're creating awareness, right? When I think of particularly during the pandemic and the onslaught of social justice issues, that was an awareness, right? The public created awareness that, hey, corporate America, you need to do something differently. We don't appreciate how you're responding. So diversity became an imperative because the public, right, the marketplace, society created an awareness that there was a problem. And a lot of that was through social media, right? I think that's one of the most prolific social media movements we've had in the most recent years. And so I love that you're talking about that stage of through social media, through the insights that you publish, the content, things of that nature, you can create an awareness of a problem that maybe they're not even realizing they have.
Yeah, they're not conscious to yet. I love that element of shining a light on a problem that a buyer isn't. I call it, we become nose blind, right? To the things that we're tolerating in our life. And corporations are the same. They become nose blind to the frustrations, the poor performance sometimes, or sometimes they just say, well, it's always been that way.
Yep.
But if we are strategic in our social media footprint, we can highlight a known frustration to the point where they realize this isn't something I need to be tolerating anymore. And more importantly, wait a minute, this is the cost, the unknowing cost that I've been forking out tolerating this frustration or this problem. Yeah. And when you can shine that awareness and bring consciousness to the cost of their status quo, that is so powerful for social media.
Extremely powerful. I love that. So that's the awareness stage, right? So how you can leverage social media during the awareness stage to create awareness of a problem, an issue, and really just that opportunity that exists that they may not be aware of. What about the consideration stage? So let's say a buyer is now aware of the problem and now they're considering solutions. And the interesting thing about when we talk about considering solutions, oftentimes they're considering any and everything. I'm considering staying with the status quo. I'm considering maybe it's a vendor. I'm considering how can we manage it in-house. And so as I'm considering all the ways that I might navigate my problem, how might social media fit into that?
Yeah. When I think of, for me, that's around identifying or conveying your uniqueness. What is your unique approach to this problem? Because often as buyers, as a corporation, there are many ways to get to the final desired outcome. But what way aligns with that corporation? And not just from a budgetary perspective, but from a values, from a culture standpoint, and even a timeline standpoint. So social media provides this fantastic opportunity to showcase our unique approach and also to demonstrate our credibility, how in the past we've been able to deliver these outcomes for past buyers and develop that trust and that credibility piece that is often also a heavy consideration.
I appreciate that. I have to say, some of the things that light me up about the big money movement are when we get women entrepreneurs that come in and they don't really have the confidence to go out and show what that return on investment looks like, what shaking the status quo looks like, and they're thinking, well, I have not been in this industry before, I've not really been in corporate before, and my experience may or may not be valuable. And then they go in and they realize that corporate's been looking for you. Yeah. Corporate has been looking for your methodology, for the way you approach it, for your experience, for your fresh eyes. There's a myriad of different ways that corporations are looking for someone to come in and help them get from their current situation to their desired outcome and the impact that they get from the desired outcome.
I agree. I think it's like they take for granted those gifts that come to them, the experience that they have, and it's having someone to help them see the use case or the opportunity and help them develop the business acumen to see that, like, this is a marketable skill set, right? And there's use for this. I appreciate that. When I think of the consideration stage as well, when you talk about the standpoint of helping them see, you know, your unique qualities, your approach, your framework, and how that can serve them in their culture, it also makes me think of almost like being strategic in your content to poke holes in the alternatives.
Yes.
Right? Like, so, okay, how can my content poke holes in your status quo? And we call it agitate the status quo, like put salt in that wound. Like, doesn't today hurt? Don't you want to...
Yeah.
Don't you want to go to a new opportunity, right? Create this transformation, but also in poking holes in alternative ways of approaching the solution, right? Not necessarily competitors, right? Not defamation or bashing another firm, but illuminating, right? Well, here are alternative ways you could approach this problem.
Right.
Here's the pros of it. Here's the cons. What can happen? And so using that as the education, right? Using content to educate the market, you know, I think that there are some firms that do this extraordinarily well. Like I think of HubSpot, right? HubSpot is a software, but they have, I mean, you would think they're an education firm, right? With all the content and resources that are online. And so when I'm considering so many things from sales, marketing, customer experience, I turn to HubSpot's tools and education. And so when I'm considering something, it then builds trust, right? So it builds trust. And because they've provided the content and resources, I'm more apt to then transact with that firm, right? And so social media is a powerful way to do that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the currency of trust is, I believe, one of the most critical forms of currency in today's age. Edelman, the consulting firm, did a global research study, and they found that trust is at an all-time low with consumers, right? And so the credence that you can create through social media and content can help to establish that trust through consistency.
Yes.
And we haven't even covered all of the areas that social media can fit in the marketing mix. That's just a taste of it. I mean, the moral of the story is it fits everywhere. But not only in the marketing mix, social media also fits in the sales mix. So in this video, we're going to talk about why social selling is important. We'll see you there. Click that next video now. Bye.